It's the 1980s, and you are on your way to look at the new models at a Ford dealership when you spot a weird-looking sports car. It was a sleek, boxy coupe that looked like an Italian sports car, but not. Starting in the late 1970s, Ford Motors and GR started exploring a series of futuristic designs called the Probe, series of concept vehicles. The first concept was the Probe 1, first shown in 1979. This was a wedge-shaped design that featured a number of drag-reducing parts, like covered rear wheels and pop-up headlights. This was followed up a year later by a much more conventional-looking Probe 2, whose hatchback styling made it look like the pony cars of that year. In 1981, the Probe 3 was made, an advanced design with covered wheels, but the body evolved into the more conventional Ford Sierra or Merkur XR4Ti, and the style notes that were used on the Ford Taurus. The 1983 Probe 4 was more radical concept car with a low CD drag parts and evolved into the equal radical 1985 Probe 5. In the 1980s, in the economic slump of the fuel crisis, Ford Motors had to give the Mustang a major redesign. The new design would be based on a new platform introduced to Ford by Japanese automaker Mazda Motor Co. Eager to leverage its new investment in Mazda, by 1983, Ford had decided that the next generation Mustang would move in a radical direction. Although still built in the United States, the Mustang would borrow the G-Series platform, which featured a front-wheel drive layout and hosted a pair of four-cylinder engines, one which would be turbocharged, as well as a tandem of V6 engine options. In addition to dealing with sales slump for the current Mustang, Ford had been fearful of the chilling effects of the energy crisis had on the sales of inefficient V8s, which, when combined with power choking pollution controls of the time, were were beginning to feel like relics of a bygone era. Windswept and bubble-like, with lots of glass and decidedly different proportions than what Ford performance fans were used to. The vehicle was on the cusp of production when disaster struck. Eager, enraged by leaked details of the plan to demuscle the Mustang, in 1987, thousands of fans and owners sent letter after letter to Ford HQ, urging the company to rethink the decision. This surprising outpouring of emotion, combined with the downward trend in fuel prices and a sudden surge in sales, brought a stay of execution to the Ford Foxbody Mustang. In 1989, the first generation Ford Probe was made. It used a GD platform and was a three-door liftback that was powered by a 2.2-liter SOHC 12-valve four-cylinder Mazda F2 engine. It debuted in 1988 for the 1989 model year and was produced until 1992 in the United States in Flat Rock, Michigan. The Probe was available in a few different trim levels that differ depending on the market in which the vehicle was sold. In the United States, the Probe was available in GL, XL, and GT trims. The XL added options for power lock, power windows, electronic adjusted exterior mirrors, a storage tray underneath the front passenger seat, as well as an optional flip-up moonroof. Starting in 1990, you could get the XL model in a 3.0-liter V6 engine, which was also in the Ford Taurus, Ford Ranger, Ford Tempo, and Ford Aerostar. The XL package offered optional equipment such as a single-disc CD player and a digital instrumental cluster coupled with a fuel eco computer installed in a hidden compartment on a top center dashboard air conditioning vent. The GT included all the things you could get in the LX, but featured the F2T 2.2-liter turbocharged intercooled four-cylinder engine that produced 145 horsepower or 108 kilowatts and 190 pound-feet of torque or 258 newton meters of torque. It came with a IHI RHB5 VJ11 turbocharger and an intercooler to the intake track, as well as a knock sensor and electrical boost control to the engine control system. The boost pressure was 7.3 psi and 2,500 RPM. The GT version also came with four-wheel disc brakes with ABS and freeway adjustable suspension, and a speed sensor variable assist power steering, or VAP. In 1993, the second generation Ford Probe came out with a completely new design for the 1993 model year. As before, the Probe was to share its understructure with the Mazda MX-6 and Mazda 626. Mazda engineered the engine, transmission, and chassis, while Ford engineered the body and interior. The second generation Probe is 60% made by Mazda and 40% Ford. Despite the car being extended and widened by 2 or 50 millimeters, it was around 125 pounds or 16 kilograms lighter than the first generation Probe. Europe finally got the probe in 1994, filling the gap left by the Ford Capri that left the market 7 years earlier. The Capri had regularly been one of Britain's top best-selling cars throughout the 70s, but its popularity declined in the early 80s as Ford launched a high-performance version of the Ford Fiesta, Escort, and Sierra hatchback. For 1993 to 1994, Ford offered the Special Edition appearance package on the base model. The package would offer 3-spoke swirl-style alloy wheels, the GT model's suspension, and the GT model's front bumper. Unlike the base model, buyers were able to opt for powered windows and mirrors on the SE package. Appearance aside, the only noticeable difference from the GT model were the wheels, rear bumper, and lack of fog lights. SE was an appearance package and not an actual model or trim level. In 1994, Ford offered a limited edition of the Probe called the Probe Future Car, but it was officially called the GT Plus package. This special package is better known to the Ford community as the Ford Probe Wild Orchid Edition. Included on this limited appearance package was Wild Orchid paint, Probe badge floor mats outlined in Wild Orchid, black clothed bucket seats with Wild Orchid inserts, and the Probe rear badge outlined in Wild Orchid. This package was only offered in 1994 and was exclusive to GT models. Ford carried over the Wild Orchid exterior paint for the 1995 model year, which was available in all Probe models. The last Ford Probe was built on June 20th, 1997. A third-generation model was to be built on the same platform as the Ford Counter was under development. Intended for release in mid-1998 as a 1999 model, when Ford decided to discontinue the Probe. This new design became the next generation Mercury Cougar. They changed to attract younger buyers into Mercury showrooms, but this proved unsuccessful. The Escort ZX2, released shortly after the Probe was discontinued, was considered to be the Probe's successor. In June 1988, Ford released what would have been the new Probe as the 1999 Mercury Cougar. The NASCAR Dash Series had a Ford Probe stock car that was driven by Jeffrey Collier that also set a new track record at Daytona International Speedway on February 13th, 1990, with a top speed of 166.553 miles per hour or 268.41 kilometers an hour. That record still stands as the fastest closed course lap for non-turbo four-cylinder car. At one point, Ford Probe also did drag racing. They were rear-wheel drive swapped with big block V8s. The only thing that was Probe was the shell of the car. But now let's get to the coolest Probe. The Ford Mustang Probe GTP. This car was an IM SA GTP racing car that was designed, developed, and built by the German constructor Zach Speed and was used by Zach Speed Racing in the 1985 IMSA GT Championship. Unlike the road car using a conventional front-engine design, the prototype race car used a mid-engined design, also known as a rear mid-engine design. It was powered by a 2.1-liter engine that was based on the Zach Speed 1500, as used in Zach Speed's Formula One car. The 2.1-liter engine that was used in the Probe GTP is often confused with the Ford Lima engine that was used in the Mustang GTP and the 2.1-liter variants of the Cosworth BDA engine. In endurance racing, it produced 600 horsepower, or 450 kilowatts, which was plenty powerful for the lightweight 1,770 pounds or 800 kilogram vehicle. This drove with the rear wheels through a 5-speed manual trans. The car was driven by a lot of people. These are the drivers, or drove the vehicle. Highlights for the car included the 2-place podium wins at Watkins Glen and Sarah's Point in 1985, and an outright win for Klaus Ludwig and at Laguna Seca in 1986. The Ford Probe was supposed to be a design and engineering marvel that would replace the 1980s Mustang, but instead it became a forgettable laughingstock of a car. Was it a good car? Yes, but it just had a lot of problems when getting made. Like, for one, why the name Probe? They could have had named it something else, something cooler. But I think it was because of the competition. Remember, it's the 1980s and 1990s, and every brand had a sports coupe that was getting sold, and the Probe wasn't the only front-wheel drive sports coupe ever. There was the Mazda MX-6, Honda Integra, Nissan XR, and more like lowish. When it came to the Generation 2, the downfall was faster than the first generation, mostly due to poor sales and just different things happening and changing in the Ford HQ. But I think it's just because, like I said, for the Gen 1, the competition was just insane. It was versing some of the biggest sport coupe names. was versing for itself the Ford Mustang, the Camaro, the Dodge, whatever Dodge had at the time, for Europe, any of the European brands, and for Asia, the legendary JDM brands. They were versing all of them. It probably didn't help as well that for some odd reason, Ford decided to sell the Probe Gen 2 in Australia. Now, for people that aren't from Australia, that probably sounds like a win, but at the time, Mazda was selling the MX-6. That was basically the better version of the Gen 2 Probe. So you had the Ford that looked like an off-brand MX-6 and the actual MX-6. And that didn't help at all. And the Australian version's a very rare version because of that. And that's the story of the Ford Probe. This one took a while just because I wasn't happy with the first script I made. I skimmed through a lot, so I wanted to actually put in a bit more effort and all of that stuff. And yeah, if you like these videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. And there's another video coming out in May, so I hope you guys all like that. And as always, Meatloaf out.